So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17th, 2021?
Um, we knew that, they had heat on Dolph and them head or whatever, so
Who had a hit on whose head?
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
I could quit had told me about it, quit, and I was in being just
How much money was it supposed to be?
$100,000.
$100,000 to kill Young Dolph. That bounty was allegedly placed by Big Jook, and later, someone reportedly placed one on him as well. But what Yo Gotti did next when he allegedly came face-to-face with the man responsible for his brother's death inside a prison visiting room caught everyone off guard. The empire, the rivalry, and the violence. Let's take a closer look at one of the most shocking moments in hip-hop history. A moment few people expected. We're talking about Yo Gotti, the Memphis rap mogul, sitting on top of a business empire worth well over $100 million, walking into a cold prison visiting area with anger weighing heavily on him. The artist who built Collective Music Group from the ground up stepped into that room ready to confront the situation directly. But to understand what actually happened and to fully grasp the scale of the story, we have to go back and examine how everything began. Mario Centel Giddin Mims came from very little. The Ridgecrest housing projects in Memphis were the type of environment where opportunities were scarce and survival came first. During the late 1990s, young Mario was working relentlessly, releasing underground mixtapes like From the Dope Game to the Rap Game, selling tapes out of car trunks before most people even knew his name. His 2012 album, Live from the Kitchen, brought him into the mainstream spotlight. By 2016, Down in the DM dominated the culture. At that point, Yo Gotti had become more than a regional rapper, he was a national figure. But what separated Yo Gotti from artists who briefly succeeded and then disappeared was his focus on building a larger operation. Collective Music Group, originally called Cocaine Music Group, officially launched in 2012. Over the next decade, it developed into a major force in the industry. CMG signed artists such as Moneybagg Yo, Black Youngster, Glorilla, and ESTG. A partnership with Interscope Records added major corporate backing. Yo Gotti also expanded into real estate and obtained a stake in the DC United franchise. While many artists focused only on music, he was building a diversified business structure. Every organization has key leadership. Within CMG, that role was largely associated with Anthony Big Jook Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother, born around 1976. He was widely seen as the operational backbone behind many of CMG's activities. Big Jook acted as the unofficial second-in-command, overseeing talent scouting, promotions, street connections, and responsibilities that stayed away from Yo Gotti's public corporate image. He appeared frequently in music videos, posted on social media in luxury clothing, and was known across Memphis's North Side as a respected and feared figure. However, this is where the story becomes complicated. For years, rumors circulated that Big Jook functioned as the organization's enforcer, the individual handling dangerous situations, while Yo Gotti maintained distance publicly. These ideas were often discussed in barbershops, online forums, and community conversations. The suggestion was simple: Yo Gotti represented the brand, while Big Jook handled the tougher side of operations. The two brothers shared a connection shaped by difficult circumstances. Growing up in Memphis meant witnessing violence and learning early that loyalty was essential. In 2020, Yo Gotti spoke publicly about his brother, saying, "My brother been my rock, he taught me the game." At the time, those words described two brothers building something together. Later, they would take on a far more serious meaning. But the environment Big Jook understood was about to become far more dangerous. Enter Young Dolph, Adolph Thornton Jr., leader of Paper Route Empire. Dolph represented a different model in Memphis rap. Instead of relying on major labels, he built a powerful independent movement. Paper Route Empire became a symbol of independence in the music industry. The rivalry between CMG and PRE reportedly began around 2014 when Dolph declined a CMG deal and chose to remain independent. What started as a business disagreement slowly escalated into something far more serious. Diss records followed. Dolph's 2017 song, Play With Yo Bitch, directly challenged Yo Gotti's credibility. Members of Yo Gotti's circle responded with their own indirect messages in music and public appearances. At first, some observers believed the rivalry was simply promotional competition, but the situation changed when violence began appearing around the conflict. In 2017, Young Dolph's SUV was hit with more than 100 gunshots in Charlotte, yet he survived. Later that same year, another attempt reportedly occurred in Los Angeles. Once again, he survived. Street rumors suggested Big Jook was involved behind the scenes, though nothing was proven in court. Yo Gotti remained publicly silent. When asked about the situation in a widely shared interview clip, he said, "I don't go back and forth on the internet. You're never gonna win." Meanwhile, critics accused him of influencing events from behind the scenes. The rivalry between CMG and PRE became one of the most closely watched conflicts in hip-hop. Then came November 17, 2021. Young Dolph entered Makeda's homemade butter cookies in Memphis, and he never left alive. The city reacted immediately, and when the murder trials began, the names that surfaced shocked the public.
All right, so the next one from Justin Johnson to TZ is Dolph rented the whole studio out for the rest of the year. Call Jook, let's make some. Right? That's what it says?
That's what it says?
And that's July 9th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because on the slideshow we talked about reaching out to Jook on July 31st, but here they're saying, call Jook, we're about to go shoot somebody.
That clip clearly revealed the connection. Justin Straight Drop Johnson was not simply a random gunman. Evidence showed that he had direct communication with Big Jook. During the court proceedings, the defense attorney explained this point in detail. There were text messages sent from Johnson to Big Jook, along with phone records connecting the two. Taken together, this information helped build the argument that the attack may have been organized and directed from higher up.
It shows on 11/16/2021 at 17:37, 15 hours. Looks like a 331-second outgoing call from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
Right. And you did that much nicer on your slideshow. I just sort of went in and downloaded the actual CDR thing to show all the...
A 331-second phone call from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims, also known as Big Jook, took place on November 16, 2021, the day before Young Dolph was killed. The call lasted roughly 5.5 minutes. What exactly was discussed during that time? Prosecutors presented what they described as a clear explanation in court, but the situation appears to run deeper than that. According to evidence introduced during the case, text messages connected to the communication included language that investigators believe was coded.
This is a text from Justin Johnson to Jook.
Can he testify about that, please?
Yeah, sure. Who are the texts from?
So it's from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
And I know there's more than one text, but I'm concerned about the one on record.
I'm starting.
Text messages were reportedly exchanged between Justin Johnson and Big Jook. Prosecutors argued these communications suggested planning and coordination related to a murder-for-hire scheme that deeply affected Memphis. During questioning, the defense asked whether investigators attempted to interview Big Jook about his connection to the suspects. The response raised additional questions.
So we've already discussed all the hardware store and all the other stuff. With regards to Jook, did you all ever try to interview Jook?
Yes.
When did you try to do that?
When we executed a search warrant on his phone
Okay.
when he was at the airport.
Okay. It wasn't annotated that you had talked to anyone in the police force, so be detective that you guys never reached out to him.
Authorities executed a search warrant on Big Jook's phone at an airport. However, testimony indicated investigators never formally brought him in for a full interview. This decision later became a major point of debate in the case. Then Cornelius Smith testified in court. Smith was one of the admitted shooters, and his testimony dramatically changed the direction of the case. When prosecutors asked how he became connected to Justin Johnson on the day of the killing, Smith revealed critical details.
So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17, 2021?
we knew that, you know, they had heat on Dolph and them head or whatever, so
Who had a hit on whose head?
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
I could quit had told me about it, quit, and you know what I'm saying, and just
How much money was it supposed to be?
100,000.
According to testimony, Big Jook allegedly offered $100,000 for Young Dolph's death, turning the Memphis rap rivalry into an alleged murder-for-hire plot. Smith stated he learned about the arrangement through Hernandez Govan, who prosecutors described as the middleman linking the shooters to the payment. The trials that followed exposed serious issues within the Memphis rap environment. They showed how long-standing rivalries could evolve into organized violence, blurring the line between music competition and criminal activity. Smith's testimony became central to the prosecution's case. In September 2024, he admitted in court that he fired the shots that killed Young Dolph. He stated he was paid $40,000 for his role in the attack, a small amount considering the gravity of the crime. Smith explained his decision was influenced by severe drug addiction and personal trauma following the loss of his child. Prosecutors argued he was vulnerable and easily manipulated. His statements described meetings, phone communications, and financial transactions that prosecutors claimed linked street-level participants to higher-level organizers.
And you testified earlier about this, just to be clear, before the hit on Dolph, before you did it, had already negotiated with you to get $10,000.
Yeah, for me, and 10,000 just.
Financial records showed payments connected to the conspiracy. $10,000 reportedly went to Smith and another $10,000 to Johnson, moving through Hernandez Govan as part of the larger $100,000 bounty allegedly connected to Big Jook. Prosecutors argued this structure demonstrated a clear murder-for-hire operation, with Big Jook positioned at the top.
Now, I want to be clear about, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to make sure $10,000 to you, you talked about it before, and then he came back to you after the fact and asked you about the 10 because he wanted his money, right?
Even after Young Dolph's death, discussions about payment reportedly continued. Participants allegedly focused on receiving their portion of the promised money, treating the killing like a financial transaction. Defense attorneys challenged Smith's reliability during cross-examination. They emphasized his history of drug abuse, arguing it affected his judgment and memory. They also pointed to claims that his legal representation was paid $50,000 by individuals connected to CMG, suggesting potential bias. This raised an important question. Was Smith providing accurate testimony or protecting certain people while implicating others? Despite those challenges, prosecutors relied on phone records, text messages, and supporting witnesses to reinforce their case. Justin Johnson's trial concluded on September 26, 2024. He was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and possession of a firearm as a felon. The court sentenced him to life in prison plus an additional 35 years. His attorneys filed an appeal, citing procedural concerns, but the conviction remained in place. As Johnson was taken from the courtroom, discussions spread across Memphis about possible retaliation. Hernandez Govan's trial produced a very different outcome. On August 21, 2025, he was acquitted of all charges connected to Young Dolph's death. Smith's testimony ultimately helped his defense argue that Govan was being blamed, while the alleged mastermind, Big Jook, was already deceased. The acquittal left many observers frustrated. It also meant Big Jook would never face trial. On January 13, 2024, at approximately 4:15 p.m., Big Jook was shot outside Perion Restaurant and Events Center in Memphis's Hickory Hill area after attending a repast gathering. Surveillance footage showed two attackers exiting a white Mercedes-Benz with rifles resembling AK-47 style weapons. They fired repeatedly, striking him with more than 20 bullets before leaving the scene. Big Jook was transported to St. Francis Hospital, Memphis, but was pronounced dead. Police described the killing as a targeted attack. Investigators released images of the suspect vehicle, though no suspects were publicly identified. Hernandez Govan later discussed hearing about Big Jook's death during a post-trial interview.
Where were you at when you heard the news that Jook had passed away? And how did it affect you?
I think I was aroused think I was riding down the street. I got a call, and I just was like, damn, you know. I hated that for Big Daddy, you know. I hate that for anybody that I know, you know.
Even Govan, the man accused of acting as the middleman in Young Dolph's murder, reportedly reacted with shock at Big Jook's violent death. He described how the incident unfolded.
He was at a funeral and he was taking a smoke break, or?
Yeah, he was at a repast, you know, when they going to celebrate, you know, life or whatever. Went outside to take a smoke break. And there it was.
Big Jook stepped outside for a cigarette during a repast, and within moments, it was over. The same streets he was believed to have controlled ultimately claimed his life in broad daylight. As of February 1st, 2026, no arrests have been made in connection with Big Jook's killing. The investigation remains open, but Memphis Police Department, MPD, has limited public information, saying details are being withheld due to concerns about leaks. The absence of progress has frustrated many in the Memphis community and increased speculation about who was responsible for the shooting. Many in the streets immediately blamed PRE-affiliated individuals. Rumors mentioned Key Glock, Young Dolph's cousin, along with other Paper Route Empire members, although none of these claims have been officially confirmed. The cycle of violence that began with Dolph's death appeared far from finished. Then, January 2026 brought another development. Theo Lil Kenny, whose real name is Kenneth Watson, a Dolph associate and rapper linked to PRE, was arrested after a high-speed chase involving drugs and firearms. Social media and YouTube quickly filled with speculation that the arrest might somehow relate to Big Jook's murder. Some users even claimed Kenny referenced retaliation in his lyrics, though authorities have not officially connected him to the shooting, the visiting room, and the reckoning. This is where the story takes a turn that many people consider one of the most unexpected moments in the entire saga. What had been viewed as a tragic conflict within rap culture suddenly became an incident likely to be discussed in hip-hop history for years. After Justin Johnson's conviction, while he remained in prison awaiting transfer to serve a life sentence, something happened that few could have predicted. An event occurred that challenged expectations about how situations like this usually unfold. Yo Gotti had followed the entire situation from a distance, but every new development affected him deeply. In court testimony after testimony, he watched his brother's name dragged through the mud. Prosecutors argued repeatedly that Big Jook had been the mastermind behind Young Dolph's murder and that he allegedly offered $100,000 for the killing due to ego and business rivalry. The brother who had once guided him and supported him was now being portrayed to the world as a ruthless killer. Then, before Big Jook could defend himself or give his side of the story, he was murdered. 22 bullets were fired outside a funeral repast, leaving him dead in the same city where both brothers had grown up. The aftermath was devastating. There were no arrests, no suspects named publicly, only silence from the MPD while speculation spread online. By February 1st, 2026, more than 2 years after Big Jook's death, authorities had still not made a single arrest. The case officially remained open, yet investigators continued withholding information due to concerns about leaks, creating the impression that the case either could not be solved or that key details were being kept quiet. The lack of progress angered many within Memphis's rap community, who were waiting for answers or some form of justice. Court documents released in 2025 also mentioned rumors of a possible hit list connected to Dolph that allegedly targeted PRE roster members, adding more tension to an already volatile situation. Claims that Big Jook may have considered targeting additional Paper Route Empire affiliates sent shockwaves throughout the industry and reportedly left Yo Gotti shaken by the implications. His brother was no longer being accused of just one act. The allegations suggested a wider campaign of violence against an entire organization. Whether Yo Gotti accepted those claims or believed they were attempts to destroy his brother's reputation, the emotional impact on him was severe. Grief and devastation eventually turned into something darker. According to individuals familiar with the situation who spoke anonymously, Yo Gotti managed to arrange a visit with Justin Johnson shortly after Johnson received his life sentence. Exactly how Gotti's name appeared on the approved visitor list remains unclear and has fueled speculation. Some believe CMG's connections and Yo Gotti's ties to Roc Nation may have helped facilitate the visit. Others believe money may have been exchanged, with correctional officials willing to overlook certain procedures. Prison authorities have declined to comment on visitor policies, leaving the official explanation uncertain. What happened in that visiting room has been reconstructed from partial witness statements and leaked internal reports, describing a confrontation that eventually turned violent. Yo Gotti sat across a table from the man convicted of murdering Young Dolph, a killing prosecutors claimed had been ordered by Gotti's own brother. The situation carried a deep irony. Gotti was now face-to-face with one of the men responsible for a murder that investigators believed his own family member had arranged. Reports indicate the conversation began calmly, almost politely. Both men came from the same city, both shaped by the same difficult environment, and both permanently connected through the violence that had affected so many lives. Johnson reportedly spoke about his earlier hopes of securing a CMG record deal before everything collapsed and he became involved in the conspiracy. Trial testimony revealed that Johnson allegedly signed "We got him" to Big Jook after the shooting, using American Sign Language to communicate the successful completion of the plan. Those words likely echoed in Yo Gotti's mind as he sat across from the man who had delivered that message to his brother. But Gotti did not come to discuss business. He was not seeking reconciliation or closure. Instead, he wanted answers to the questions that had followed him since Big Jook was killed. Who murdered Big Jook? Who ordered the attack? Who actually pulled the trigger? Street rumors frequently mentioned retaliation, yet no names had ever been publicly confirmed. Johnson had already been in prison when Big Jook was murdered, meaning he could not have carried out the act personally. However, he understood the players, the dynamics, and the way such conflicts typically unfold. According to witness accounts, Johnson refused to share information, or possibly said something that pushed Yo Gotti past his limit. At some point during the exchange, the situation escalated. A makeshift weapon, reportedly created from materials either smuggled into the room or obtained within the facility, ended up in Gotti's hand. The man who had spent years building a successful music empire and working with major corporate partners suddenly acted in a way that changed everything. The attack happened quickly. Correctional officers responded within seconds and moved to separate the two men, but by then, the damage had already occurred. Johnson suffered several stab wounds to the torso before guards restrained Yo Gotti and forced him to the ground. Medical teams immediately treated Johnson, while Gotti was handcuffed and taken away from the scene. News of the incident spread across social media, news platforms, and entertainment blogs within hours. The individual who had built CMG into a $100 million enterprise, secured major partnerships with Interscope Records, and expanded investments into sports and real estate, had just committed a violent act inside a prison visiting room, an event that would likely reshape his legacy.
Legal analysts quickly began discussing the possible charges he could face and what his defense might involve. Potential accusations included assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, and smuggling contraband into a correctional facility. As prosecutors reviewed the situation, the list of possible charges continued to grow. His legal team moved quickly to manage the narrative, issuing statements and communicating with media outlets. However, security camera footage from the visiting room and witness testimony left limited room for a defense based on denial. Following the incident, attention returned to the larger problem of violence within the Memphis rap scene. This situation was not simply about two individuals in a room. It represented the long and bloody conclusion of a decade-long conflict between CMG and PRE, between two different approaches to success: empire building versus independence, embodied by Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. Even after both central figures were gone, one dead and the other now behind bars, the conflict continued to affect the community. The consequences for Memphis have been severe. Many artists have left the city, unwilling to risk becoming another casualty in a feud that appears endless. Key Glock, Dolph's cousin and one of PRE's most prominent artists, reportedly relocated after Dolph's murder to distance himself from the environment that claimed his relative. Memphis records over 300 murders annually, a tragic number that includes many deaths tied to rap conflicts and gang affiliations. The violence has become generational, repeating itself year after year like a destructive cycle. Cornelia Smith, whose testimony helped convict Justin Johnson and who implicated Big Jook during the trial, described in court the complex network of relationships connecting those involved.
Through Go, man.
All right, and who is Govan?
Hernandez go being quick. You know about quick.
Okay, who is Quet?
Associate.
All right, you say associate. Is he younger or older than you?
Older.
What neighborhood does he hang out in?
Orange Mountain.
Does he live over there?
Yes, sir, he did.
Do you know what street his house is on?
Bradley.
You familiar with that street?
Yes, sir.
His testimony traced links through neighborhoods, associates, family relationships, and street affiliations, outlining the interconnected networks present in Memphis's most dangerous areas. Those same streets produced both CMG and PRE and launched the careers of Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. Today, those streets are also marked by the violence that has taken so many lives. Music was supposed to provide an escape. For too many individuals, however, it has instead led to prison sentences or early deaths. As for what happens next, legal proceedings involving Yo Gotti are still developing, while the entire industry watches closely. His company now faces its most uncertain period ever, with questions surrounding leadership, public image, and the real possibility that its founder could spend years incarcerated. CMG artists have largely remained silent since the incident. Their social media pages show no commentary, and public appearances have been postponed or canceled. The music industry continues to observe the situation, uncertain about the future of one of hip-hop's most successful independent labels. Online discussions have exploded with speculation. Every corner of the internet has offered its own interpretation of what occurred and what it means. Some voices argue that Yo Gotti's actions were understandable, the reaction of a grieving brother seeking revenge after the justice system failed to deliver answers. Others point to the testimony and alleged hit list involving Big Jook, arguing that the violence he may have initiated eventually returned to his own family. Debate about who was truly responsible in the CMG-PRE feud has reignited with renewed intensity, with past accusations and grievances being examined once again. One fact remains clear: the streets eventually demand payment for every conflict. Young Dolph lost his life at Makeda's Cookies in November 2021. Big Jook lost his life outside Perion restaurant, shot during a smoke break at a funeral repast. And now, Yo Gotti may have lost his freedom, his empire, and the reputation he spent decades building. All of it changed in a single moment inside a prison visiting room, a moment driven by anger and grief that cannot be reversed. The Memphis rap scene will never look the same after this. The city that once produced legends such as 3-6 Mafia, 8-Ball and MJG, and Project Pat now carries lasting scars from this conflict. The real question is no longer who won the feud. When lives are lost and others are imprisoned, there are no winners. What remains uncertain is how many more lives will be affected before the cycle finally ends. And tonight, as darkness settles over Memphis, that question still has no answer. The streets continue watching, the streets continue waiting, and the streets remember everything.